I'm excited to share a couple updates with you today. On the last roundup call, we shared some screenshots of our progress on the UI and UX evolution. We've already merged a number of these changes, so I wanted to give a little demo of what these look like so you can get excited about these changes too. Also going to share some details on some things that we've done to make it easier to roll out these UI changes, and finally just talk about a couple other cool updates. First thing we'll jump into are some of these UI changes. I'm going to do a live demo of these here in a second, but wanted to do a quick run through of everything first. So first we have the reports tab where we've updated how filter and search work. So the main goal here is to align the CHT with the Android material design standards so that the CHT uses familiar design patterns with other apps and that health workers use on their phones. So we expect this will make it much easier for users to learn how to use the app initially, but it'll also help with the overall scalability from a design perspective. On the left is the old screen, and on the right is the new screen. And you can see how much cleaner it looks on the right. And then as you'll see in the demo, it's definitely much easier to interact with as well. We've also updated how search works on the contacts tab. So on the left is what the old version looks like. You might notice that in the old version of search on the contacts tab, it looks totally different than how it looked in the old version of the reports tab. So even within the app, search kind of behaved a little bit differently. On the right side is the updated version, which works exactly how it works on the reports tab, the new reports tab as well. So now users will have that consistent experience throughout the app. So while we expect users to be more familiar with these new design patterns, we do recognize that it is a change and you might want to provide training to users on these changes. So to facilitate this training, we have provided a mechanism to train users remotely using these in-app training cards that they can be prompted to complete. So these are totally customizable to your needs, but we have provided some out-of-the-box content for these changes. The other thing that we've done to facilitate rolling out these changes is that we are making the old version of the UI available for a period of time. So while the old version will be completely removed in the future, you will be able to roll out these UI changes over time in cohorts. So this is controlled by permission so that you can, for example, have new users immediately see the new version of the UI and sort of phase in the new UI to existing users over time. So it should facilitate those updates. Awesome. So I'm actually going to give a quick demo before we jump into the next slides here. So on the left is the old version of the UI, and you can see on the right here, we have the new version. So definitely a lot cleaner. The way that you actually filter on here, so if you wanted to filter on multiple things, you kind of had to go in and tap on different sections here. And actually, you had no idea that anything was filtered at this point. Whereas in the new version, you have a slide out filter here. And as you kind of tap on the different options, you can filter multiple things at the same time here. And you can also see up in the right-hand corner that things are actually filtered. In the old version, there is this button here that would reset the filter. In the new version, there's a reset button on there. Likewise, old version, this is what the search looked like. New version, this is what the search looks like. Likewise, on the People tab, old version, People tab, new version, you'll see that search looks exactly the same on the Reports tab as it does on the Contacts tab. So we have a real consistent look and feel. And like I said, we do have the training content for these. So when these updates are made, we can make the training content available to share these updates so that users can see, so that they can learn remotely what changes have been made. So yeah, we're super stoked about these changes. I think that it's it brings a lot more consistency to the app and across other apps as well. So it's going to have a more consistent look and feel. So that's an overview of the changes on the UI that we've made, and some techniques on how you might do some training on those updates. There are a couple other things that we are working on and are nearly ready to merge. One of which is, you'll see here, is adding the lineage, or what we call the breadcrumbs, to the tasks tab. So the reports and the messages tab already have these the breadcrumbs, but we've heard from users that it's sometimes difficult to know which household a person is in, particularly when that task is for a child. So starting from 317, you'll see the lineage or the breadcrumbs on the task tab. It'll be very clear to know where that patient is. Finally, we recently published some documentation on using stock monitoring in the CHT. We know that projects have been doing stock monitoring in the CHT for years, but there was never any documentation on it. So we published that, and we're also doing a lot of work just understanding the needs of projects right now, and in preparation to do some focus work around stock monitoring in the future.
Today, I'm going to talk about offline user replace, which you may recall we had a failed demo last time. So we're hoping the demo gods are on my side. And then also I'm going to walk through a new feature we're working on, which is similar to offline user replace, but we're calling it supervisor CHW create, where supervisors can use multiple devices to create a user. So as before, on the left, we're logged in as the online admin, and on the right, we're logged in as an offline CHW. And not only is this an offline CHW, I've actually put the phone in offline mode, so there's truly no connectivity, and the CHW is presumed to be in a rural setting where there's no cellular connectivity to facilitate a replace. So in this scenario again, the CHW has decided to leave work, and they've returned their phone to the supervisor. The supervisor then needs to, again, without any connectivity, replace the CHW with another CHW that's already trained. So we'll use the same device, using no connectivity, replace that user. So in Jake's area, Jake is the CHW that's leaving, and we're going to replace them with a new user. So the first thing that needs to happen is the administrator needs to enter in the code. This prevents any unauthorized use of the form by CHWs who may come across it. We then enter in the new information for this incoming CHW. And we've streamlined this form a bit, where there's a very limited amount of information you need to enter. So we enter in the name, the age, the sex, and then right now, this phone number for this deployment is actually hard-coded. This means that we take the phone number from the user and we put it in this form, and we don't allow you to edit it. This prevents any data corruption, but it is actually configurable. So if you're in a scenario where you're replacing the SIM based off of the outgoing CHW and the incoming CHW, we do allow you to edit this. The role, of course, is fixed to CHW, and we submit this. So now if the new CHW, again acting as Jake, but they've been entered in as Lisa, they can actually go and deliver care to, well, we actually don't have any families, so will deliver some self-care maybe. And this form that will get submitted will be parented to the current user, but then after it's submitted to, oops, I'm using a form that's a little more complex than I had wanted. It will be reparented to the new user. So I'm just going to quickly go through this form here. All right, so now we've submit this form, and right now this report will actually be parented to the old CHW. But now when we go ahead and put the browser or phone online and synchronize, what will first happen is all the data will be sent up, and then it will be reparented, and then you can see the CHT has actually logged the user out. What's happened behind the scenes is we now have an SMS that's been sent to the user, and I'm going to simulate the user having received the SMS and logging in with the token login link. This is just a great mechanism to easily log the user in without needing a login or password. So the new CHW just had to synchronize and then click the SMS link, and now they're logged back in. And in Jake's area, we can see that Lisa is now the primary contact. And as well, the report that was submitted was actually submitted correctly by Lisa, even though it was submitted under Jake. So this process can happen, as I said, entirely without connectivity and still needs the supervisor to make sure that the PIN is entered so that there's no unauthorized access. So we just did the offline user replace demo, and there's a forum post for anyone who wants to read more about that. So this is a high-level diagram that talks about the difference between replace and create. We just saw replace, and what replace does is using the same phone on the left and on the right, allow the supervisor to fill out a form, the CHT to synchronize the data, and then on the same phone, continue using the phone as a new user. With create, we bifurcate this process where it's assumed the CHW either has been given a phone or they're bringing their own phone. And the supervisor will fill out a very similar looking form where they're required to enter in a PIN and then synchronize to the CHT. The new CHW will get a token login link, and then they're able to log in and commence using the CHT based off of the activities of the supervisor. All right.
Okay, I was just wondering whether the new the area will be renamed to the new user's name, because before it was Jake's area. Now that it's Lisa, would it get to be Lisa Jones' area, or does that remain static?
Currently, it remains static. We'd love to hear feedback on use cases where it would need to be changed. Oh, yes.
A quick one. I know I'm new here. I just wanted to understand the messaging functionality. I've seen it, but not much has been spoken about it.
Great. Thanks, Alan. That's a great point. So in this demo, it's assumed that there's a messaging gateway set up with the CHT. And you saw me go into the administrative interface, and I looked at outbound messages. This, of course, isn't how it would work. What you would normally do is have a system like Rapid Pro or the commercial instance TextIt set up so that SMS can be sent out, and you configure the CHT to send token login links or magic links. And these are links that when you click them in the SMS, it immediately logs you into the CHT without a login and a password. These links are only valid for that user, and they're only valid for 24 hours. As well, you can enable them and disable them per user, or resend them to allow a user to log in. Great. Michael has conveniently pasted a link for more information on the documentation on that. But there is some infrastructure there that's needed as far as having the ability to send SMS and enabling token login. I'm reading
It's another
Jackie's.
question of another use case of replacing the primary caregiver of a family.
In that case, the primary caregiver of the family is not a user, so they're going to be a more traditional contact, right? So a CHW has a place in the hierarchy, they have a contact, and then they have a user. The primary caregiver of a family, if I understand the question correct, is a contact. So in that case, you would create a new contact and then edit the place to set that as the primary contact for that place. Additionally, you could rename the contact, the old contact, if needed. Jackie, let me know if that answers your question.
Yeah, in a way, because what you're saying is, because I was just we're looking at this scenario where you have primary caregivers and let's say they are no longer primary caregivers, either due to death or muting. So if we need to replace this primary caregiver, we just rename a contact within the household, or we rename that primary caregiver and edit, let's say, the age and everything concerned, gender, to be that primary caregiver. But that means there's a trail of submissions of forms that are not related to this new person. So if now we get a man and there's pregnancy related forms already submitted, I think it's a bit confusing. So yeah, we were looking at that scenario whereby how could we be able to replace? Yeah, that's one thing you've mentioned, which could be the renaming, but there's that concern of the backlog of forms. And the other thing would be sometimes if a primary caregiver is, which I think is another use case as well, if a primary caregiver is marked as deceased, how can we close out this family in itself if there's no other person within the family? If it's a family of one. So because the family, the household still stays active. So if you just mark them and the CHW does not proceed to mute the entire household, that household just stays active and you can continue playing about in that household. That's totally different. Yeah, but we can think about the two.
Thanks, Jackie. Oh, Michael, did you have something?
I was going to say that one's actually come up recently too. I'm not, it could be the same project, not sure, but that is one that one of our projects is working on some potential ways to do that, where if you, for example, if the last person in the household gets muted, it just kind of mutes the entire household, for example. So that's one thing. And I think the other thing that I heard was about, if I understood this correctly, essentially you want to be able to just edit the primary contact in a household, or the primary caregiver, kind of like you would change your preferred phone number on your bank thing or something like that. But basically just being able to edit a contact and make them the primary caregiver. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, to just add the star to the next person and remove the star from the previous person instead of editing the contact with the star.
Yeah, for sure. Gotcha. So I've noted that down. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks for that question. It was about why we didn't use the supervisor phone. We needed to have a no connectivity solution, which meant we needed to stay on a single device, because there's no way to synchronize between a supervisor and a CHW's phone. With that said, I'm going to press ahead for the last little bit here. So we'll talk about 316. We had maybe set aside some time to do a demo, but we're not, because we have just a couple of minutes left. So 316, we had said we would do a demo last time. It's long since been released, but I think maybe I have a screenshot on localizing admin, which is in the next page. So this just shows that the administrative interface can now be translated. And I wanted to point out with the red arrow that there may be some missing translations, so be sure to test before deploying that. This is what it looks like on just on the command line where you use translation files. This is English and French for the same tokens, same keywords. For bulk upload, this also is in 3.16. It allows the ability to import CSV files to easily create lots of users, as well as possibly lots of contacts and lots of places. There's a link to documentation for when we post the presentation later. In the last little bit here, 3.17 is coming up. We are going to improve bulk upload to set the primary contact. We have a lot of the filter redesign that Michael was talking about. We're going to change it so that the text icons, text labels show for icons along the bottom of the screen, and that public privacy will be available to be compliant with the Play Store.
Yeah, I think wanted to just ask a little bit about timelines on release of CHT 4.0.
Yeah, we're still shooting for Q3. We're finalizing a lot of things right now, and it's expected to go to test very soon. But right now, Q3 is still looking good. We don't have an exact date, though.
Q3 means by September, right?
Oh, sorry.
Does it mean like this month sometime?
Yes, the end of September is the end of Q3.
Okay, great. Oh, great to hear. Thank you. Appreciate it. And actually, just to follow up on that, like, is there a scale kind of target, as in like in terms of this? I know 4.0 has a lot of scale features in it, scale readiness features. So just curious if there's any kind of scale readiness targets in terms of users and that kind of thing. That
We don't yet have. Oh, excuse me. We don't yet have targets. Like right now, we're in the process of running a series of tests to get those numbers, but we don't yet have numbers that we're ready to share out yet. You can expect to get those at some point. We just don't have them yet.
Okay, great. Thanks.